Welcome to all. Again, I should say, mundane topic of a gastric outlet obstruction. Before that, there are two things I want to mention because the abdominal lump was sort of cut off at an early stage. There are a couple of points I'd like to have. Number one, when you get a lump in the abdomen as a long case in the MS exam, you're expected to come to a clinical diagnosis. Maybe the ultimate diagnosis turns out to be something totally different. The second point is the diagnosis you're going to offer should be based on the clinical findings you have been able to achieve by the history and physical exam. I think this is a system you should follow. Every time you write a case sheet of a lump in the abdomen, you must get in the habit of writing a clinical diagnosis. Don't say, I'll wait for ultrasound, I'll wait for CT, all those things come later. There is a place, I'm not saying. Maybe certain lumps which you come as a long case, there may be a lot of difficulty in arriving at a clinical diagnosis, but expect to say, let us say there's a liver. You expect to say there's a malignant liver, probably a primary, probably secondary. To that extent, you are given a leeway. But you can't say, I'm not sure about the liver or the stomach. I don't know, I want to get an ultrasound. That kind of a diagnosis will not be accepted by, am I right, Dr. Radhakrishnan?
I agree, sir, totally.
Yes, exactly, because you should. This analytical mind is necessary. That's why I said, of course, I have some other ways of explaining that I won't mention it here, because you have to get the totality of the picture. Don't go by one physical finding, what I called in the previous class is a tangential thinking, laying emphasis on a particular finding and then trying to build the whole story around it is a wrong approach. You've got to wait until all the findings are available for you, and then you come to a logical diagnosis. And repeat again, more often than not, students go down because they tend to contradict themselves. Either the diagnosis does not fit into the findings, or they modify the findings to come to the diagnosis they have in mind. Both are not correct. You have to have a clean mind, assess all the findings, put them in the proportion of importance, and then come to a diagnosis which is tangible with the findings you have. That's the best. Then, of course, examiners will take you across investigation, imaging, etc. That is, steps are there. Many cases which come for the exam may be that you will not be able to come to a firm conclusion. Okay, right. Before I go to gastric outlet obstruction, a couple of points about stomach which we missed out. Now, if you find a lump arising from the stomach, what are the findings? Two important points, I'll come to that. The commonest site is the epigastrium. To a certain extent, at least early stage, they tend to move with respiration because we all know the organs we mentioned which move up or down with respiration. Coming to borders, there's one important point. In the epigastrium, more often than not, you can feel the upper and the lower border. Lower border is always palpable. The upper border, when you go to the left hypochondrium, you may not be able to feel because the tumor will be extending along the lesser curvature. One maneuver which is helpful is to make the patient sit up. The weight of the tumor in the stomach may bring it down and you may be able to feel the upper border. Other maneuver which I mentioned last time is change the posture, turn the patient left lateral and see that it moves. Now, as growth arising from stomach is expected to shift, but there is a caveat. That's what makes PG learning such a difficult process. If the tumor is fixed to the posterior abdominal wall, you turn it around, it may not shift, and you may think of a retroperitoneal diagnosis. There's one important clinical sign when a tumor or the cancer of the stomach gets fixed to posterior abdominal wall. Can anybody tell me? One important clinical sign. Not 100% reliable, but these are points that help you to move further. Can anybody tell me? I see one Agarwal, the one HG, I suppose stands for high grade knowledge. Come on, quick. Transmitter pulsation abdominal aorta. When the tumor is in the epigastrium, it's sitting practically in front of the aorta. And when it extends posteriorly, chances are you may find transmitter pulsations abdominal aorta through the lump. Understand? So that's again, repeat, Anatomical planes may be difficult. There are cases where, as I gave one example last time, was a desmoid tumor arising from the post-rectus sheath, which is clinically deep to rectus, therefore liable to make intra-abdominal intraperitoneal, but is actually in the abdominal wall. Similarly, a carcinoma stomach is extended posteriorly, may not shift on change of posture. The likely thing is retroperitoneum. One sign that helps you to say probably is extended posteriorly is the transmitted aortic pulsations. Now, consistency invariably hard. On percussion, very important, you get an impaired node. Stomach, irrespective of the amount of tumor it has, still is a hollow organ. This is one of the clinical signs that is used to distinguish between, come on, answer this question at least. Epigastric lump, percussion is important, distinguish between, come on, quick, MBBS, quick.
Left lobe of liver.
Left lobe of the liver, excellent, very good. And the stomach. But there are situations where the lump is so large, it may be difficult. And remember one other thing. Occasionally, where the lower part of the left lobe of the liver is so thin, the part of the stomach overhangs and you may get some degree of resonance. So I repeat again, all clinical signs have their own limitations. That's why postgraduate learning process becomes much more difficult. Traditionally, at the MBBS level, all liver lumps are dull, all stomach lumps are resonant or impaired resonance, but there are exceptions to the rule that the tumor can extend so high up, you may not be able to make out the difference, or a thin sheath of the liver being overlapped by a stomach may give an impaired tone. Okay, right.
Sir, in that situation, what to do?
Beg your pardon?
In that situation, what to do?
What to do? You have to offer the diagnosis, which there are situations like this, not very common. When it is there, you have to explain the finding and say, because there's dullness above that, I still feel it is liver only. The lower part, there may be impaired resonance. Part near, see, close to xiphisternum, there's always an area of dullness when the liver is enlarged. Okay? Now, a couple of clinicals, all of you have seen visible peristalsis. This is, they have marked out the greater curvature, and the next picture probably is even better. So what are the characteristics of gastric wave, please? What are the characteristics? The test will come to a little later. What defines a gastric peristaltic wave? What are the clinical features? Tell me.
Left to right.
Left to right.
Pardon? Left to right.
To right.
Yes, madam, but abdomen is 9 quadrants.
It starts from the
Hypochondrium.
Across the epigastrium, usually crosses the midline. Okay, rest of the points will come to a little later. Now at this stage, can you see the wave, please? This shows the dilated stomach. Sorry. This shows the dilated stomach. They are marked a greater curvature, come to a little later. And this is the wave. Now, which are the other parts of the GI tract where a visible peristaltic wave can be seen? Come on. Which are the
Transverse colon.
Transverse colon.
Transverse colon, very good. Under what circumstance does it occur?
Right to left.
Left.
Yes, exactly. No, where?
Splenic flexure mass or descending colon mass. Splenic flexure mass or descending colon mass.
Right.
I flip from the right to left.
To left, right. Is it common, uncommon, rare? Is this
It is
sign
common.
Common.
Yeah, I want more votes. I want Vidya, Patel, and Krishna. All three say common. Are there any dissenters? I like dissenters amongst the PG audience. Come on.
Common.
Common. Very good.
DGP is common. This is not common.
Beg your pardon? No. I'm not asking whether carcinomas of splenic flexure are common. Those patients who have obstruction splenic flexure producing away from the right to left. We are not discussing the incidence.
No,
I am
rare.
focusing myself only on the clinical sign. Yes, please.
Sir.
Splenic flexure mass is common, but clinically is not very common.
Very good. Your good name is Krishna, is it? Who is answering? Come on.
Karthik.
Why?
Karthik Agrawal.
Yeah, come on. Why?
Partial obstruction is the
Partial. Right. Okay, I'll give you a clue. The answer is not in surgery, but in anatomy. I'll give you a clue. Answer
I'll
is
use-
not in surgery. Yes, Akash.
Gastrocolic ligament.
Don't go to the ileum. Don't go to the. We are far away from the ileum. We
Due
are
to the gastric
to the transverse colon.
gastrocolic ligament.
Gastrocolic ligament. Very good. Anyhow, you are proving every class. You are proving my statement that PGs are the most fertile imagination. Thank you. You keep on imagining more and more things. Quick. Anybody? Answer is anatomy.
The diameter is.
Colon
Yes.
is more sensible.
Okay, now let's go back. How is a peristaltic wave produced? It's a contraction of which group of muscles?
Circular muscle.
Sir, circular.
Hypotrophs, the circular muscle fiber. Am I right?
Yes,
Agreed?
sir.
Right. Now, is there a difference in the circular muscle fibers of the stomach and the colon? Quick. Is there a difference in the anatomy of the circular muscle?
The colon, it will be actually segmental contractions will occur.
Exactly. Why? Why?
Because there won't be connections. The inner circular and outer this.
Loud.
Sorry, the connections are in the network intrinsic the enteric nervous system connection is like that.
PGs
So that it will have
what I like is PGs are extremely competent in converting simple things to complexities.
Absence of mind reflexes.
That's what I'm saying. You are converting simple things into more complex things. Congratulations. Come on. Is Vaishnavi around? Is Vaishnavi there? Okay, right. Now, if you look at the, yes, if you look at the anatomy of the colon, the circular muscle fibers are divided into 3 segments by the presence of longitudinal fibers known as
Linea.
linea coli. So it's not a complete ring. To tell you, go one step more. In my entire lifespan, I've seen one patient with sigmoid flexure growth producing a peristaltic wave from right to left. I'm saying this because every clinical surgery books mention it probably as frequent as you see a left to right wave. It doesn't happen. One patient I have seen who had a growth in the splenic flexure, and that patient had, despite being divided in 3 segments, there was so much hypertrophy, I could see a beautiful wave from moving from right to left. Therefore, it is rare. Not even uncommon, it is rare. Understand that? Answer is unadulterated, simple anatomy. Right. We have fit right to left, left to right. Now, any other structure can produce peristaltic wave. Yes, Meghana, quick.
Small bowel.
Small bowel. What are the characters small bowel peristalsis?
Step ladder pattern.
Step ladder pattern. Why is this step ladder pattern? How is it produced?
Pattern they are different.
Loud. Okay. Now you wanted to see step ladder. Can you see step ladder, please? Is it clear? Step ladder? Can you see the 1, 2, 3, 4 steps of the ladder? Are you able to see it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
This shows segmental hyperperistalsis proximal to an obstructed lesion. Understand that? Now, unfortunately for you, not all small bowel peristalsis need be like a step ladder. What distinguishes small bowel peristalsis are, number one, that as we learn later for gastric peristalsis, we have to give water. We don't give water for this case. Number 2, they're central located in relation to umbilic. Number 3, they're multiple. Number 4, they do not have a fixed direction. Number 5, they need not always be step ladder. Shall I repeat again?
Yes,
It's
sir.
clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Number 1, it's independent of water intake, which of course we come to stomach later. Number 2, since the small bowel is central located in the central part of the abdomen, because there are multiple loops, they are segmental peristalsis. When they're in it makes matters easy, but otherwise they do not have a specific direction. That The next picture will show that very clearly. This is umbilicus there. The one way which is horizontal, another way by the side, which is practically on either side is more vertical. So multiple waves, no fixed direction, independent of water intake, central located, and when present step ladder adds on to small bowel. So therefore you got to have three types. That's why we have always add on the word VGP. You say visible peristalsis, you are not referring to which part of the GI tract you're talking to. My professor used to say VP, it's a vice president. VGP stands for visible gastric peristalsis. Other one is transoscola, as I said earlier, it's extremely rare. Small bowel peristalsis. What's the commonest cause of stricture small bowel in this country? Quick.
Adhesion.
Tuberculosis.
Adhesion.
Okay, adhesion, right. It already become modern. Traditional India, rural India, not undergone surgery.
Tuberculosis.
Tuberculosis still is a
Hernia.
common disease.
Hernia.
Tuberculosis strictures are common. Why does tuberculosis produce a stricture?
Because healing by fibrosis. Healing is by fibrosis.
My dear boy, anywhere in the body, healing occurs by fibrosis. Why stricture?
Circular.
Ulcers
Circular.
are transverse, sir.
Why? Why the ulcer circular?
Circumferential.
Why?
Circumferential.
Why? Back
Because of the
to-
pest species. Pest
Back
species.
to anatomy.
Because it's regularly-
The lymphatic is distributed in a circular fashion along the blood vessels. So spread occurs along the lymphatic, multiple ulcer along the circumference. Ultimate result is fibrosis stricture. Good. Now we come back to our main topic. Now, what are the causes of gastric outlet obstruction? In my part of the country where I work, or along the West Coast, number one is the only reason. But recent discussions I had with leading lights, including Dr. Radhakrishnan, tells me that the second condition also exists to some extent in some parts of India. I have not seen one for the last, I retired quite some time ago. From 1980 onwards, I don't think I have seen a cicatrizing duodenal ulcer leading to stenosis, but I'm told it's still prevalent in some parts of the country. Therefore, we'll discuss later. Remember, occasionally a carcinoma of the pancreas can produce extrinsic obstruction on the pyloric region, resulting in a picture akin to gastric outlet obstruction. Today, of course, imaging and the findings of the lump, etc., will differentiate, but you have to keep this in the back of the mind. Books tell you caustic injection. I have seen plenty of caustic injection of the esophagus leading to stricture. I have not seen leading to duodenal obstruction, but books describe caustic injection as one of the causes of duodenal stenosis. I have not seen a case.
Sir, carcinoma gallbladder?
Carcinoma gallbladder producing duodenal obstruction, extremely rare. Maybe
Sir,
parts of
sir, not-
India is much more common than what we have seen. Maybe if the places where carcinoma gallbladder produces such a large lump, it abuts on the duodenum, may cause. Yes, you may be right.
Yes,
Right.
in northern part of India, we find more of these cases,
I
more
agree
like
with
this
you.
cases.
I agree with you. I fully agree with you. I fully agree. Whoever has said that is perfectly on the right path. Now, the symptoms first. Most important, of course, pain is there. More often, vomiting is the main complaint with which patients come to you. Now, you got to know every detail about vomiting in case of gastric outlet obstruction. Number one, relation to food intake. What time does it occur in relation to intake of food?
After half an hour to 1 hour.
Half an hour is rather early. I'll come to reason a little later. Minimum 1.5 to 2 hours. Patients who regurgitate, we discussed this point last time. Patient who have esophageal obstruction regurgitate the food within a matter of minutes. But these are patients where the food remains in the stomach and then comes out maybe an hour, hour and a half, or 2 hours later. Number two, is it spontaneous induced? Spontaneous induced.
Spontaneous.
Always spontaneous. Number three, content. Small or large content.
Food
Large,
content.
large
Food
volume.
content.
Undigested food content.
Beg your pardon?
Digested food content. Not
Digested food content. Bapre, what happens?
Undigested
if
food
you
content.
partially.
hope you're
Partially digested.
Partially
Partially digested.
Very nice. Once you make it digested, then it can only be two other options. Either completely undigested or partial digested. You have only three options. You're 33% right. It's partially digested. Right. Smell? Yes or no?
Yes,
sir.
Yes, sir.
Foul.
Why?
Because of the undigestion of the food.
Undigested food produces smell of the food that the patient ingested. You would like it, no? The smell is an integral part of, so a patient, if he brings out the food that he has taken, should be happy.
Bacterial fermentation will happen.
Bacterial fermentation is going a little too far. Anyhow, fermentation occurs only sugars.
The food stays there for a long time.
Great, we'll come to it later. Last point, how much relief does it produce? Vomiting does relief.
Yeah. Yes.
Totally or partially?
Partial.
Partial, correct. There's never complete relief, partial relief. Now, please remember, many patients before the onset of vomiting have a ball rolling sensation. It can occur even before the episodes of vomiting start. Maybe a couple of weeks before the patient starts vomiting, he tends to develop, I'm using the word he because most carcinoma stomach is much more common in males, develops a ball rolling sensation in the upper abdomen, epigastric region. Of course, there's associated loss of appetite and weight loss. We already learned about it. Now, general physical examination, I have mentioned this last time, I won't repeat again. Anemia, dehydration, weight loss. We come now the most important clinical signs. It was my misfortune, misfortune or fortune, to listen to one of the discussions that was taking place at the postgraduate level, put out on the Facebook. And the patient had a gastric outer obstruction. Right. The lady who was presenting said, there's a previous history of acid peptic ulcer disease going on for 1 year. No, I'm sorry, 18 months. Is it possible? Can a carcinoma stomach go on for 18 months?
No.
Then patient says endoscopy was done and she was put on drugs following endoscopy.
More likely peptic stricture.
Huh?
It will be benign stricture.
Benign stricture. We'll come to that later. Benign stricture will come to later. Can the patient have an active ulcer not in the duodenum, somewhere else in the stomach? Because this patient now has obvious signs of carcinoma stomach. He has got a lump. Huh?
Gastrinoma, sir.
Now tell me, how do you classify gastric ulcer according to the anatomical origin?
4.
What are the types of gastric
Four
ulcer?
parts.
5 types, sir.
What are they?
5 types. 5 types.
What's the commonest side?
Lesser curvature.
So number 2.
Lesser curvature on the higher.
Agreed. What I'm interested is pre-pyloric ulcers have a tendency to become malignant. That girl should have said, sir, this patient had an endoscopy, had a pre-pyloric ulcer, probably has become malignant. Remember that. The reasons why is beyond my discussion for the day. So it is possible that a patient gives history of previous peptic ulcer, the one location where you can give rise to an a malignancy later is a pre-pyloric benign ulcer. Okay, right. Now, what are the signs? This is something which again I found was totally lacking in that particular discussion. First is succussion splash. How do you elicit this? How do you elicit a succussion splash?
Put a stetho over the epigastric region and
The patient should be
in the.
so it should be done before looking at EGP. So
NBM for 4 hours.
Before?
NBM for 4 hours.
Before decompression of the stomach.
patient should be helper
I
oral,
have
sir.
patient has come to my OPD. I have not decompressed anything. He has come to OPD. I am looking for a succussion splash.
The patient should be
Ask the patient to take
2 hours, 2 to 3 hours at least.
Patient should have, I didn't hear, should take or should not take?
Should not take for
That's
succussion
right.
splash.
Must make sure that the stomach is empty for a minimum of 2 hours.
2 to 3 hours.
With this, because even a normal person, I'm sure you drink a Coca-Cola and start running, you can hear your own succussion splash. Had the experience? Sure, all of you would have had that experience. So empty stomach, then you get a shake and here's splash down. 1. Number 2 is the we are coming to today, visible gastric. As I said earlier, it's present in the upper abdomen, extending from the left upper abdomen crosses the midline and stops there. Why do you give water? Why do you give water? Is water always, question number one, is water,
To initiate the gastric peristalsis.
is water always necessary?
Yes,
Not
sir.
always. Not always.
Not always. If you're able to see a peristaltic wave, don't bother to give water. Okay, you give water to get the stomach to start moving. How much of water? How much of water?
Actually, in literature, they are not mentioned. They are telling only
I'm
one full
asking,
glass.
my dear
One
boy,
full
why-
glass of water.
Huh? The classical MS answer. You know, if you go to a 5-star hotel, you ask for a cup of coffee after having your full dinner. You know, in what kind of cup they serve coffee? The tiny little cup, it may hold 20 ml. Whereas if you go to a fruit juice shop and ask for a juice of grape juice, they have a big tanker which contain about more than 300 ml. So you can't give an answer like a glass of water. You know, the size of the glass varies. What is the quantum? Roughly.
Around 250
Around.
ml.
Around
250 ml.
100 ml is enough. 100 ml.
100 ml is enough. Right, very good. What happens if you 101 ml?
Because it will stimulate the peristalsis.
My dear boy, I have a beautiful story about this. I don't know how many of you come from agriculture places where you see buffaloes. In areas where rainfall is adequate and plenty, these buffaloes would like to lie down in those muddy waters. We learned this story in a primary school. The buffalo gets a hit. You know, what does the buffalo think? Some buffalo in my village is getting hit. By the time the 8th hit hits the buffalo, buffalo knows he is being hit. The same thing. These are atonic stomachs. Unless you adequate amount of water, the stomach will not move. It's like a buffalo lying in a muddy water. 300 ml is the usual quantum necessary. Number one. Number two, you must have patience. These stomachs will not get, they don't know that you are appearing for the MS exam and everything has to be finished in 30 minutes. The stomach doesn't realize it. It takes its own time. Be patient. Number three, the best place to look for peristalsis is to stand at the foot end of the bed and watch the abdomen carefully in good light. Understand? If you're lucky, the stomach decides to move like a buffalo and you get a beautiful wave. Now, what are the measures to make matters easy for exam? You're in a hurry. What are the measures that are expected of you to try and get the stomach to move and show a visible peristaltic wave? Quick. Ankit Patel, full name. Quick. Vidya, there's one more.
Snatch a fold of skin over the epigastrium and to shake it, and after that.
I would use the word a vigorous rub. The vigorous rub on the epigastrium may induce the stomach to move. Is there anything else described in books but not followed in practice? Because examiners are, sometimes the small things they would like to dig further and get the answer from you. Quick. Anything described in books, not followed. Okay. Use something that is available in the OT. I'll give a clue. Use something that is available in the OT.
Alcohol swab, cold
What?
stimulus alcohol swab.
Alcohol is better used by some other route, Baba. Why waste alcohol pouring on the abdomen? Certainly.
Ether, sir, ether.
Ether, that's right. What is described in books is you pour drops of ether. How does ether work? I'm giving the comparison of buffalo for this particular reason. Ether produce what happens? Takes away the latent heat of evaporation and suddenly a freezing effect is produced in the abdomen. And that's like giving the 8th hit to the buffalo. The buffalo wakes up, the stomach moves. But this is never done. It's only described in books. I have never done. Last question is a visible peristalsis necessary to diagnose a I'm sorry, change the question. A patient with GOO, can he present without a peristaltic wave?
Yes.
When?
Yes,
When?
Incomplete obstruction.
I'm sorry. I have a degree that will tell you the level of your answer. Anyhow, that's my habit. I can't get over it. Quick.
Linitis plastica.
Lionel Plantar never produce a peristaltic wave. The whole stomach is like a leather tube, Baba. Leather bottle. Leather bottle. Do they move? Leather bottle. Thick leather. Surprised. I think I want to ask a question. Do patients with, this is a question by invitation. This is what happens in the exam. The question you are invited. Does leather bottle stomach induce vomiting? I want an answer, yes or no.
Usually no.
Usually, why usually? Diplomatic answer. Unusually, yes, is it? Diplomatic answers are not accepted by surgeons. Physicians may accept.
Causing by the fundus
Leather
region.
bottle stomach, the lumen remains patent. The